The first time my mother called me a burden in front of strangers, I was 12 years old and standing in the cereal aisle at Walmart holding a box of Frosted Flakes. She laughed while she said it too. Not a nervous laugh, not a mean laugh, the kind of laugh people use when they think the truth is entertaining. "Lord knows Ava keeps us humble," she told the cashier. "That girl can turn one problem into 10 before breakfast." The cashier chuckled politely, my little brother smirked, and I stood there holding that cereal box like it weighed 50 pounds. Funny thing is, people think humiliation always arrives loud. It doesn't. Sometimes it arrives smiling. Sometimes it wears perfume and carries a church Bible. Sometimes it's your own mama speaking soft enough that everybody pretends it wasn't cruel. I'm Ava Brooks. I'm 33 years old, and the night my family tried to publicly embarrass me at my cousin's wedding rehearsal dinner, they accidentally exposed a secret that flipped their whole world upside down. But to understand why that night mattered, you gotta understand the kind of family I came from. Small town, Arkansas, one stoplight, everybody in everybody's business. The kind of town where folks wave at you with one hand and judge you with the other. My mother, Denise Brooks, lived for appearances. Church every Sunday, perfect curls, matching kitchen towels, fake smile sharp enough to cut glass. She loved my little brother Caleb like he hung the moon. Football star, golden child, the boy who could do no wrong. And me? I was the girl who asked too many questions, too emotional, too independent, too loud when I defended myself, too quiet when I got tired of trying. By 18, I already knew the rules inside our house. Caleb succeeded? We're so proud of him. I succeeded? Well, Ava got lucky. Caleb made mistakes? Boys will be boys. I made mistakes. That attitude gonna ruin your life. My father never stopped her. That part hurt worse. See, cruelty is painful, but silence teaches everybody else cruelty is allowed. I remember one Thanksgiving when I was 16. I spent 8 straight hours helping cook, clean dishes, set tables, watched my little cousins, did everything. At dinner, my aunt asked who made the sweet potato pie. Mama smiled and pointed at Caleb. Caleb looked confused as hell because that boy couldn't microwave popcorn without burning it, but he took the compliment anyway, and I sat there smiling like it didn't bother me. That's the thing about kids who grow up emotionally neglected. We become experts at pretending. By 18, I was exhausted, so I left. 2 duffel bags, $300, an old Honda Civic that rattled every time it hit 60. I moved to Dallas because it was the farthest place I could drive without completely running out of gas money. My first apartment sat above a tattoo shop and smelled like cigarettes and regret. I worked mornings at a diner, nights cleaning office buildings downtown. Most people don't realize how invisible cleaners are. You could mop around somebody's feet for 3 years and they still wouldn't remember your name. Rich folks especially. They'd walk past me talking on Bluetooth headsets while I scrubbed coffee stains out of carpet tiles. Some looked through me like I was furniture. Others looked at me with pity. But every once in a while, someone looked at me with respect. Those people changed everything. One night around midnight, I was cleaning a law office when one of the partners came back because he forgot his laptop. He watched me reorganize an entire supply closet while talking to myself under my breath. Then he asked, "Do you always work this hard?" I shrugged. Bills don't pay themselves. He laughed. Then he said something nobody in my family had ever said to me before. "You run this place better than the people who own it." That sentence stuck in my chest for years, because sometimes strangers see your value faster than family does. I started taking private cleaning clients on weekends, then apartment turnovers, then Airbnb units, then luxury condos. I learned everything: floor chemicals, scheduling systems, client retention, payroll taxes, vendor contracts. YouTube became my business school. While other people binge-watched Netflix, I studied entrepreneurship videos at 2 a.m. eating ramen noodles and sweatpants. And slowly, things changed. 1 employee became 3, 3 became 8, then 22. By 28, I owned a legitimate company, Blue Haven Property Services. Not glamorous, not sexy, no flashy tech startup nonsense, just consistency. Reliable people, clean spaces, professional work. Turns out, rich people will pay ridiculous money for reliability. Who knew? Meanwhile, back home, my family barely asked questions. Every phone call sounded the same. You still cleaning? Not, how's business? Are you happy? Do you need anything? Just, you still cleaning? And every time they said it, they emphasized the word cleaning like it was proof I'd failed at life. Eventually, I stopped correcting them, because you get tired of explaining your worth to people committed to misunderstanding you. Then came the invitation. Cream envelope, gold lettering. Rehearsal dinner for Madison Brooks and Tyler Green. Madison was my cousin. Sweet girl, didn't have a cruel bone in her body. At the bottom, handwritten in blue ink, Ava, please come. It wouldn't feel right without you. I stared at that line for a long time. Then my phone rang. Mama. Hey, baby, she said in that sugary voice she only used when she wanted something. I got the invitation. Well, listen, she said quickly. Tyler's family is very upscale. His daddy owns dealerships all over Oklahoma. We just don't want any awkwardness. I already knew where this was going. What kind of awkwardness? A pause. Well, don't go talking about janitorial stuff all night. Janitorial stuff. I closed my eyes. Mama, I own... I know, but people hear cleaning company and immediately think mop buckets. Let's just keep things classy, okay? Classy. That word sat bitter on my tongue, because poor people love pretending dignity belongs only to rich folks. I almost skipped the dinner right there, but Madison texted me 20 minutes later. Please come, I need my favorite cousin there. So I went. Big mistake. Or maybe best thing that ever happened to me. The restaurant was downtown Dallas, one of those trendy places with hanging lights and steaks that cost more than my first electric bill. When I walked in, I noticed something immediately. There were place cards. Everybody sat at the main tables. Me? Tiny two-person table near the back wall beside the service station. I actually laughed under my breath, because honestly, the disrespect had become so predictable it almost felt lazy. Mama spotted me first. Oh good, you made it! No hug, no compliment, just relief that I showed up dressed nice enough not to embarrass her. You're over there, she said, pointing toward the tiny table. I looked around. 3 empty seats existed at the main table. One had Mama's purse sitting on it. Message received. So I sat down quietly. And for a while, I just observed. That's one thing painful childhoods teach you, how to read rooms. Tyler's family carried real money, not fake, small-town, impress-the-neighbors money. Real money whispers. It doesn't shout. Then I noticed Tyler's aunt, Vanessa Green. Sharp navy suit, diamond earrings, silver streak in her hair. The kind of woman who looked like she could fire a CEO before dessert and still sleep peacefully afterward. She kept glancing at me. Not judgmentally, curiously, like she recognized something. At first, I ignored it. Then dinner started. Wine flowed, people laughed, stories bounced across the table, and eventually the conversation drifted toward careers. Caleb launched into some story about regional sales numbers at his company. Mama beamed so hard you'd think that boy invented electricity. Then somebody asked about me. Big mistake. Mama smiled tightly. Ava does cleaning work. Cleaning work. Not owner, not entrepreneur, not businesswoman, just cleaning work. Vanessa tilted her head slightly. What kind of company? Before I could answer, Mama jumped in. Oh, nothing huge, just little housekeeping jobs here and there. A couple polite nods around the table. Then Caleb smirked. She got lucky after COVID. Everybody wanted disinfecting and all that. Lucky. I sat there silently while people rewrote my entire life in real time. And honestly, that wasn't even the painful part. The painful part was how normal it felt. Have you ever sat in a room where people discuss your life like you're too unimportant to speak for yourself? That kind of loneliness changes you. I picked at my salmon quietly. Then Vanessa asked me directly, "So, what's the name of your company?" Mama laughed nervously. "Oh, trust me, it's not—" Vanessa never looked away at me. I asked her. The entire table went quiet, and for the first time all night, somebody made space for my voice. So I answered, "Blue Haven Property Services." Vanessa froze. Not dramatically, just enough. Her eyes narrowed slightly. Then she repeated it softly. Blue Haven, like she'd heard it somewhere before. And suddenly, I realized something was about to happen, something my family absolutely was not prepared for. The next morning, I woke up before sunrise, even though I barely slept. You know that kind of exhaustion where your body is tired but your mind keeps replaying every sentence like security footage? Yeah, that. I stood barefoot in my kitchen, staring out the window while the coffee machine hissed behind me. My phone sat face down on the counter. 3 missed calls from my mother, 1 voicemail from my father, and somehow that felt stranger than the dinner itself. Because Richard Bennett never called me directly, ever. Not when I graduated, not when I moved into my first apartment, not when my company crossed its first million in revenue. The man could live in the same house with you for 20 years and still act like communication was optional. So seeing his name on my screen at 6:12 a.m. felt like spotting snow in July. I didn't listen to the voicemail. Not yet. Instead, I opened my laptop and pulled up the quarterly reports for Brightway Living, the company everyone at that dinner thought was a girl with a mop and some rubber gloves. 22 locations, 9 states, 113 employees, 3 commercial contracts pending, and somehow none of it made my chest feel lighter. Because success fixes bills, it fixes stress, it fixes survival, but it does not magically heal the little girl who spent her childhood begging to be chosen. People don't talk about that enough. You can build an empire and still flinch when your mother says your name the wrong way. Around 8:30, my assistant, Ava, called. "Morning, boss." "You sound nervous." "I kinda am." "Why?" "You're trending in Ridge County Facebook groups." I closed my eyes. Of course I was. Small towns treat humiliation like a community theater production. Everybody wants front row seats. "What are they saying?" A pause. "Depends which group." "That bad?" "One lady called you the silent millionaire maid." I laughed despite myself. Not because it was funny, because if I didn't laugh, I might have cried. Ava hesitated before speaking again. "There's more." "What?" "That woman from the dinner, Diane Carlisle?" "Yeah." "She posted about you." Now that got my attention. Diane Carlisle wasn't just wealthy, she was Midwest old money wealthy, the kind of woman who donated libraries to universities and somehow made cashmere look intimidating. What did she post? Ava cleared her throat dramatically. "Proud to partner with one of the most disciplined founders I've ever met. Grace under pressure reveals character. Last night revealed plenty." Silence. Then Ava added softly, "Everybody knows who she meant." I sat down slowly at the kitchen island, because suddenly this wasn't confined to one ugly family dinner anymore. Now the story had escaped the room, and once stories escape, you can't control where they go. By noon, 3 different local business pages had reposted an old article about me from Indianapolis Monthly. The headline read, "From cleaning houses to building a multi-state company, how Elise Bennett rebuilt her life one client at a time." My mother never read that article. I know, because she once told someone she didn't really follow internet stuff. No, she avoided anything that might force her to see me clearly. Around 2 p.m., finally, I listened to my father's voicemail. Static. A cough. Then his voice. "Hey, Elise." Long pause. "I think maybe we should talk." Another pause. "You embarrassed your mother." I actually laughed out loud. Not a happy laugh, the kind that slips out when something is so wildly unfair your brain short-circuits. You embarrassed her. Not, your mother humiliated you. Not, we failed you. Not, I should have stopped it years ago. Just, you embarrassed her. That was the moment something inside me finally stopped hoping. Not dramatically. No thunder, no tears, just a quiet little click, like a lock turning. I deleted the voicemail. Then I blocked both their numbers. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel guilty afterwards. That evening, my younger brother Noah showed up at my house unannounced. Now, let me explain something about Noah. In every dysfunctional family, there's usually one person who learns how to disappear. That was Noah. Quiet kid, always reading, always careful. The type who apologized before asking for ketchup. He was 4 years younger than me and spent most of our childhood trying to make our mother angry, which meant staying invisible. He stood on my porch holding a grocery store cheesecake like a peace offering. "I didn't know what people bring in situations like this," he said awkwardly. I stared at him, then at the cheesecake, then back at him. "You drove 2 hours with cheesecake?" "It was either that or wine, and honestly, you look like somebody who already has wine." I snorted. Actually snorted. First real laugh in days. He smiled a little when he heard it. Inside, he sat at my kitchen counter while I made coffee. He looked around the house slowly. Not judgmental, just absorbing. "You did good," he said quietly. Those 3 words hit harder than all the compliments online, because Noah knew where I started. He knew the attic bedroom with no insulation, the thrift store shoes, the birthdays forgotten unless Lauren reminded Mom. He knew. And unlike the others, he wasn't pretending he didn't. "You hungry?" I asked. "Nah." "You drove 2 hours." "I mostly came to see if you were okay." That almost broke me. Not because it was dramatic, because it was simple. Nobody in my family had ever asked me that without wanting something attached to it. We sat in silence for a minute before he finally said, "Mom's losing it." I leaned against the counter. "How bad?" "She's blaming everybody." "Sounds about right." "She told Aunt Cindy Diane Carlisle manipulated the whole situation." I blinked. "Manipulated?" "Yeah. Apparently, a billionaire investor forced her to insult her daughter in public." I laughed again. Noah didn't. "She's scared, Elise." That surprised me. Scared of what? She built her whole identity around being admired. He looked down at his coffee, and people saw her clearly for the first time. Ooh, that one landed. Because he was right. My mother didn't just crave love, she craved image, control, approval, being perceived as the perfect Christian mother in the perfect little town. And now the mask had slipped in front of witnesses. Noah rubbed his palms together nervously. She keeps saying you turned everybody against her. I shook my head slowly. Noah, I didn't do anything. I know. That's the crazy part. I didn't expose her. She exposed herself. He nodded. Then quietly, I should have defended you more growing up. I looked at him carefully. You were a kid. So were you. Silence. Heavy silence. The kind full of old truths. He swallowed hard. You know what I remember most? What? The science fair. I froze. God, I hadn't thought about that in years. I was 13. I built an entire solar-powered water filtration model from scratch, stayed up for weeks on it. Teacher said it could have gone regional. Mom never showed up. You know why? Lauren had a cheer competition the same day. Noah looked at me with sad eyes. You stood there holding that stupid ribbon for like an hour waiting. I stared down at my mug. I kept thinking maybe traffic was bad. Noah's voice cracked. You looked so embarrassed when everybody else's parents came. I pressed my lips together hard, because some memories don't age. They stay sharp forever. Noah wiped his face quickly. She made us all participate in it, Elise. In what? Pretending you mattered less. That sentence sat between us like broken glass. Then he whispered, and after enough years, we all got used to it. That was the first time anyone in my family had ever told the truth out loud, not softened, not excused, not wrapped in church language or fake politeness. Just truth, raw and ugly. And weirdly enough, that truth hurt less than the pretending ever did. Before he left, Noah stood awkwardly by the front door. Mom's probably going to keep trying to contact you. I know. What are you going to do? I looked past him toward the dark street outside. For the first time in my life, Elise, I opened the door. I'm going to choose peace over guilt. He nodded slowly, like he was trying to memorize the sentence for himself. Then he hugged me. Tight. Quick. Like someone who didn't grow up getting many hugs. After he left, I sat alone on the couch with the untouched cheesecake on the counter, and I realized a strange thing. The dinner didn't destroy me. It revealed me. There's a difference. 1 week later, I got invited to speak at a women entrepreneurs conference in Chicago. Normally, I would have said no. I hate public speaking, which sounds ridiculous considering I manage 100 employees. But running a company and standing vulnerable in front of strangers are two very different things. Still, Diane insisted. You should do it. I clean vacation rentals for a living, Diane. I'm not Oprah. You built something from nothing. So did a lot of people. Yes, she said calmly, but most of them didn't survive what you survived emotionally. That shut me up. The conference was held downtown at this giant glass hotel overlooking the river. 500 women, founders, executives, investors, people in heels expensive enough to pay my first month's rent. Backstage, I nearly threw up. A woman with a headset kept smiling at me like nausea was empowering. You're gonna do amazing. Ma'am, I am actively dying. Then Diane appeared beside me, elegant as always, completely unbothered. You nervous? I'm considering faking my own death. Don't, it wrinkles the outfit. I laughed. She squeezed my arm gently. Then her expression softened. Elise, yeah? Tell the truth. That was it. Not be impressive, not be inspiring, just tell the truth. So I walked onto that stage under bright whites with shaking hands and a heartbeat loud enough to qualify as a percussion instrument, and for the first 30 seconds, totally bombed. Dry mouth, awkward pacing, sounded like a malfunctioning GPS. Then I looked out into the audience and saw a cleaning woman near the back, serving coffee. Hair tied up, comfortable shoes, tired eyes. And suddenly, I remembered exactly who I was talking for. Not the investors, not the CEOs, her. I took a breath. Then I said, "When I was 19, somebody handed me $20 and said, 'Don't spend it all in one place, sweetheart,' after I cleaned their bathroom." The room got quiet. Not conference quiet, human quiet. I kept going. I spent years being ashamed of the very thing that built my life. I paused. My company started with a borrowed mop, a vacuum that overheated every 40 minutes, and a girl who thought her worth depended on being chosen. Silence. Then softer. But survival has a funny way of teaching you things. I looked across the crowd slowly. Sometimes the people who dismiss you the hardest are standing closest to the life they secretly wish they had the courage to build. You could feel the shift in the room after that. People leaned in, not because I sounded polished, because I sounded real, and people are starving for real. By the end of the speech, women were crying, actually crying. One older lady grabbed my hands afterwards and whispered, "My daughter cleans houses too. I'm going to call her tonight." I barely made it to the hotel bathroom before I started sobbing. Not delicate movie crying either, ugly crying, mascara, sniffling, existential collapse. Because for the first time in my life, my story wasn't something I survived quietly. It was something helping other people feel seen. And that changes you. A few days later, a clip from the speech went viral online. Millions of views, comments everywhere. I felt this in my soul. This healed something in me. My mom treated me the same way. But one comment stopped me cold. It was from Lauren. "I'm learning how to stop being silent. Proud of you, sis." I stared at it for a full minute, then cried all over again. Because healing doesn't always arrive dramatically. Sometimes it shows up as one honest sentence from someone who finally found their voice. And somewhere back in Ridgeview, my mother was watching the entire world applaud the daughter she spent 30 years trying to minimize. That part, she still couldn't understand. And honestly, that was no longer my burden to carry. 3 months after the engagement dinner, winter hit Indiana hard. The kind of cold that makes the whole town look abandoned. Bare trees, gray skies, gas station coffee tasting like survival. And for the first time in years, I spent Christmas somewhere peaceful. Not happy, peaceful. There's a difference. I rented a cabin 2 hours north near a frozen lake where nobody knew my last name. I brought books I never had time to read, fuzzy socks, and enough groceries to avoid human interaction for 4 days straight. Honestly, it was heaven. No tension, no pretending, no sitting at a dinner table waiting for somebody to turn me into the punchline. Just silence, the healthy kind. On Christmas Eve, snow started falling around sunset, big, slow flakes drifting past the windows while an old jazz playlist hummed through the cabin speakers. I was halfway through making pasta when my phone buzzed. Lauren. I stared at the screen a long moment before answering. "Hey." Her voice sounded shaky. "Hi, sis. You okay?" A pause, then quietly, "Mom's in the hospital." Everything inside me went still. What happened? "She collapsed at church." My hand tightened around the counter edge. "Is she—" "She's okay. Stress-related, they think. High blood pressure, panic attack, maybe. They're keeping her overnight." I closed my eyes. And this is the part people don't understand about complicated families. Love does not disappear just because pain exists. Even after everything, my first feeling was fear. Not revenge, not satisfaction. Fear. When did this happen? An hour ago. Where's Dad? At the hospital with her. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. She asked for you. That one hit me differently. Not because it fixed anything, but because it was the first time in my entire adult life my mother had asked for me when there wasn't an audience watching. I looked out the cabin window at the falling snow. I don't know if that's a good idea. I think she finally realizes things are really broken. Broken. Funny word. Like the damage had happened suddenly instead of slowly over 30 years. Lauren's voice softened. I'm not pressuring you. I know. But if you don't come, I think you should make peace with the possibility that nothing between you ever changes. After we hung up, I stood there for a long time. Pasta boiling over in the background, snow falling outside, heart fighting with memory. And here's the truth nobody tells you about boundaries. They are hardest when the other person finally reaches for you after years of letting go. Because suddenly the child inside you whispers, maybe this time, maybe now, maybe finally. That little voice is dangerous. I drove back to Ridgeview Christmas morning. The roads were icy, country radio playing softly, and every mile closer to town felt like driving backward through my own life. The hospital looked exactly how hospitals always look on holidays. Too bright, too quiet, people pretending exhaustion is normal. Lauren met me in the hallway outside room 214. The second she saw me, her eyes filled. She's awake. How bad is it? She's okay physically. Physically, that word carried weight. Lauren touched my arm carefully. She's different today. I almost laughed. Everybody says that after somebody gets sick, as if one hospital bracelet magically rewrites a personality. Still, I followed her in. And for the first time in my life, my mother looked small to me. Not emotionally small, human small. No makeup, gray roots showing, hospital gowns swallowing her frame. Age finally visible. Richard sat beside the bed reading a magazine he clearly hadn't absorbed a single word of. When he saw me, he stood immediately. Awkward, uncomfortable, like a man suddenly realizing silence had expired as a strategy. Elise. I nodded once. Dad. My mother looked toward me slowly, and I swear to God, the expression on her face scared me more than anger ever had, because it was grief, real grief, not performance, not church lady tears. Grief. Hi, baby, she whispered. Baby. She hadn't called me that since I was maybe 6 years old. My throat tightened instantly. I stayed near the door. Didn't move closer, didn't move away, just stayed. The room filled with silence until Richard cleared his throat. I'm gonna get coffee. Nobody stopped him. The second he left, my mother started crying. Not elegant crying either. Messy, embarrassing, human. I ruined everything. I said nothing, because honestly, I didn't know if comforting her would heal me or betray me. She pressed trembling fingers against her eyes. People look at me differently now. And there it was, the first instinct. Image, reputation, perception. I felt something in me harden again. But then she said, and the worst part is, they should. That one caught me off guard. She looked at me with red, swollen eyes. I've replayed that dinner 1,000 times. Silence. I heard myself. Her voice cracked. The things I said to you. I stayed still, careful, because wounded people can mistake one emotional moment for transformation, and I needed truth, not temporary guilt. My mother looked down at the blanket in her lap. You know what scared me most? I didn't answer. You didn't fight me. Her eyes lifted slowly to mine. You just sat there like you already expected it. Oof, that one nearly knocked the air out of me. because she finally saw it, not just the humiliation, the history, the repetition, the exhaustion. She covered her mouth with shaking fingers. "How long have I been hurting you?" And there it was, the question I'd wanted my entire life. Not, "Why are you sensitive?" Not, "Why can't you move on?" Not, "Why are you difficult?" Just, "How long have I been hurting you?" I sat down slowly in the chair near the window, and for a second I saw both versions of her at once, the woman who wounded me and the woman shaped by wounds I probably never fully understood. That doesn't excuse cruelty, but it explains how it survives generations. "My whole life," I said quietly. She closed her eyes, like the words physically hurt. "I was jealous of you." I blinked. "What?" My mother laughed once through tears. "Doesn't that sound insane?" Honestly, yeah, it did. She shook her head slowly. "You walked into rooms without needing approval, even as a little girl." I almost interrupted because no the hell I didn't, but she kept going. "You had this stubbornness, like some part of you refused to break." Tears slipped down her face again. "And I spent years trying to make you smaller, because I thought if I couldn't understand you, I could at least control how other people saw you." I stared at her speechless, because sometimes the truth is uglier than the fantasy. I spent years believing my mother hated me, but hate would have been simpler. This was insecurity mixed with power, a damaged woman using humiliation to feel bigger. She swallowed hard. "And when your business succeeded," she laughed bitterly, "I kept waiting for you to fail." There was the honesty. Raw. Awful. Real. Why? "Because if you succeeded without us," she whispered, "then I'd have to face what we did to you." The room went quiet again, machines humming softly, snow falling outside the hospital window. Finally, I asked the question sitting inside me for decades. "Did you ever love me?" My mother broke. Not dramatically, not movie style. She folded inward like something finally collapsed under its own weight. "Oh God," she cried. "Yes." I felt tears hit my own face before I realized I was crying too. "Yes, Elise, I loved you. I just loved you selfishly." That sentence changed my life, because suddenly everything made terrible sense. Some parents love their children, but they love control more, image more, comfort more, ego more, and the child grows up starving inside a house that technically had love in it. My mother wiped her face shakily. "You deserved better than the version of me you got." I looked out the window because I couldn't breathe right for a second. You wait your whole life for certain apologies. Then, when they finally come, they don't feel triumphant. They feel sad. Sad for the years lost. Sad for the kid who needed them sooner. Sad because healing arrives after damage, not before. After a while, I stood up. My mother looked terrified suddenly, like she thought I was leaving forever. "Elise?" I walked closer to the bed slowly, and for the first time in almost 20 years, I hugged her. Carefully, not because everything was fixed, not because the pain disappeared, but because for one honest moment, neither of us was pretending anymore. She cried into my shoulder like a child. "I'm sorry," she whispered over and over, and I believed she meant it. That didn't erase the past. It didn't magically repair trust, but it mattered. God, it mattered. Richard came back 10 minutes later holding terrible vending machine coffee and froze in the doorway when he saw us. My mother reached for his hand immediately, and something passed between them. Recognition, maybe, or accountability arriving after decades late. He sat down heavily, then looked at me. Really looked at me. I failed you too. Simple, direct, no excuses. Honestly, hearing that from my father shocked me more than anything else that day. Because men like Richard build entire lives around emotional avoidance. Admitting failure felt almost unnatural coming from him. I should have stopped it, he said quietly. I nodded once. Yes, I said. No cushioning, no rescuing him from the truth, just yes. And weirdly, that honesty opened more space for healing than pretending ever could. By spring, things looked different. Not perfect, different. Lauren and Kevin restarted counseling together and quietly set a new wedding date. No giant engagement party this time, no performance, just peace. Noah started visiting me regularly on Sundays. Sometimes we watched football, sometimes we barely talked. Turns out, healing doesn't always look emotional. Sometimes it looks consistency. My mother began therapy, actual therapy, not church counseling, real therapy with a woman named Denise who apparently didn't let her get away with anything. Good for Denise. As for me, I stopped shrinking, completely. I started speaking publicly more, expanded the business again, mentored women starting over after divorce, addiction, loss, abuse. Women who thought survival disqualified them from success. I made damn sure they learned otherwise. And 1 year after that dinner, Lauren got married. Small ceremony, outdoor venue, string lights everywhere. Simple, beautiful, peaceful. Right before the ceremony started, I stood alone near the garden fence adjusting my dress when my mother walked over carefully. You look beautiful, she said softly. Thank you. A nervous pause. Then she handed me something, an old photograph. Me at 8 years old sitting on a kitchen counter holding cupcake batter all over my face. I stared at it confused. You kept this? She smiled sadly. I kept everything. My throat tightened instantly, because sometimes love exists in broken people long before they know how to express it correctly. She touched my arm gently. I can't undo what I did. No, but I'm going to spend the rest of my life trying to do better. I looked at her a long moment, then nodded. That's all I ever wanted. During the reception, Lauren pulled me onto the dance floor halfway through some old Motown song. No escaping, she laughed. I hate dancing. You survived Mom, you can survive this. Fair point. So I danced. Badly. No rhythm whatsoever. And at one point, I looked around the room and realized something hit me hard enough to almost stop my heart. Nobody at that wedding was pretending anymore. Not me, not Lauren, not even my parents. The perfection was gone, and somehow that made room for something real to finally grow. Later that night, I stepped out for air. Warm summer breeze, music muffled through the walls, and Diane Carlisle appeared beside me holding 2 champagne glasses. Thought you might need reinforcement, she said. I accepted one gratefully. We stood there quietly for a moment before she smiled sideways at me. You know, that dinner changed more than your family. How? You changed the way half this town talks about work. I laughed softly. By getting humiliated publicly? By refusing to be ashamed of honest labor. She clinked her glass lightly against mine. People remember that.
I looked back through the reception windows at my family laughing inside. Messy, complicated, healing slowly, and for the first time in my life, the sight didn't make me feel lonely. Diane studied me carefully. "What are you thinking about?" I smiled a little. "That little girl in the attic room." "Yeah? I think she'd finally feel safe here." Diane nodded softly. "Yes," she said. "I think she would too. And maybe that's the real ending of this story. Not revenge, not humiliation, not money. Safety. Peace. The moment you stop begging people to see your worth and start building a life around the people who already do. If you're listening to this right now while sitting at your own toxic table, hear me carefully. Being treated badly does not make you hard to love, and walking away from people who keep wounding you is not cruelty. Sometimes it's the first loving thing you've ever done for yourself. My name is Elise Bennett. I started with a mop, a borrowed vacuum, and a heart full of things